Hello, guys. Good evening. I'm so happy you guys could get on. Come in, come in. This is our fourth day of our special coverage of critical race theory, breaking it down, what it is, what it isn't. And tonight I've got a very special guest, Mr. Terris Todd. Right now he's a program director at the Civil Society and the American Dialogue at Heritage Foundation. Terris, welcome.
Thank you very much. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too. The last time I saw you, it was 150 degrees. You were in a suit.
Oh, yeah.
Down at our Legislation Action Day, and you just gave a speech that was straight fire.
Oh, thank you.
And so we were talking about, at that time, getting a CRT bill to actually be brought up in North Carolina, and we did that. And now it's great because the GOP Senate has actually put something on the desk of the governor, and we're really excited about that.
That's great. Congratulations for that. We had a great time. Katie Gorka and I, my colleague there, when we came down. Interestingly, I was 2 weeks on the job when we came down there. So I said, wow, on the job already, and for 2 weeks, and now I'm speaking to a crowd in Raleigh, North Carolina. So it was a good time. It was a really good time, good camaraderie, and it was for a good cause. So thanks for actually inviting us.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, you have a lot of, expertise in this area. I mean, your background, it's just exactly the kind of guidance we need right now. I mean, you left, the White House, you were in the Department of Education, and you were in charge, or you were director of African-American affairs inside the Department of Ed. And before that, I mean, you've done everything from, I think you were with the Head Start program. You're a director in that in Battle Creek, Michigan. And so you have direct experience with that. And just like me, you used to be a Democrat, and for reasons that are, unique and probably have a lot to do with what we're talking about tonight, switched parties. And so we've been on both sides of the aisle, and we encourage other people. Education is a nonpartisan issue. It should be, right? We're just talking about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I was saying before, I don't know how we've gotten to this place where things like education and healthcare and things like that has become so politicized, and it's really not a political issue at all. It's about what's right and what's wrong. And so whenever we can stay focused on what's right and what's wrong for the good of all Americans, we can't go wrong with that. So, but again, politics have gotten to be, it's like children in the marketplace, if you will. It's unfortunate that our younger generations now get a chance to witness 80-year-old individuals acting silly, embarrassing themselves and the country, and embarrassing, quite frankly, embarrassing leadership. And so it's a wonder why some of our youth kind of look at that and just kind of shake their heads and like, is that how they're supposed to be acting? And so very unfortunate, but that's pretty much where we are today.
We are. And as a matter of fact, speaking of setting a bad example, the NEA Teachers Union, and down here in North Carolina, it's called the NCAE Teachers Union. I mean, they've got a few prominent teachers that kind of make other teachers look bad. I mean, they're out there calling people names and things like that. Have you seen that across the country as well?
Yeah. Oh, that's happening all over. And that's the agenda of the left. I mean, that's just what they do. If you don't agree with their thought process, their ideologies, or their game plan, then they resort to juvenile behavior. And it's not just the left, but it's mostly them right now for the most part. And that's very unfortunate because, my mother and my family has always raised us to say, if you have nothing good to say about someone, don't say it at all. But unfortunately, this stuff now with, media amplifies everything now. And so, somebody could display a lot of juvenile behavior today, and next thing you know, it's all over the world in seconds. And so that's very unfortunate. But again, we see it time and time again, and that's probably something that's going to continue. And very unfortunate that our leaders are they've taken a stance on not being held accountable to the highest degree.
That's right. I mean, what you're looking at right now is a guy who teaches a very prominent NCAE leader, which is NEA leader, this is back when the schools were going to open, suggesting that white folks are the problem here. They're the ones that want the schools to open. And the implication is, of course, that Black families don't want the schools to open to in-person learning. And this is, in my mind, bordering on racist type of stereotyping. I mean, this is the kind of things that this is the kind of thing that we thought we had seen the last of, but because of critical race theory, it seems to me like stereotyping, scapegoating, collective punishment is back.
Yeah. You know, it's unfortunate that he made that claim. Again, juvenile types of behavior, resorting to name calling. And as a matter of fact, I mean, talking about white folks pulling their kids. Well, let's remember my time at the Department of Education, 74% African-Americans, 71% Hispanics believe in school choice, you know, and so, which is a good thing, right? I think that parents should be the deciding factor, not government, for what's best for a person's child. And so if that school is not measuring up to their standards, then they have every right to pull that child. The money should follow the kid, right? They have every right to do so because that is their child, not the government's. And so very unfortunate that you still have that. But again, the left is so enamored with race. That's been a part of their playbook for many, many years. And so it's not a surprise at all.
Yeah, no, definitely not. But I mean, you know, we have teachers like this who go out there and speak nonsense and expect to be taken seriously when they get into the classroom. I mean, I think, and it really breeds a lot of mistrust. I mean, you and I are reformers for the public school system. That's what we're trying to do, is reform the public school system. We've got to restore credibility and trust. And this critical race theory and making these race-based attacks is just pure insanity.
Well, Sloan, I'm glad you mentioned that, the trust piece, because really schools, and I've said it before, schools are supplemental, you know, and one of the things that people don't understand about the Department of Education here in DC, the Department of Ed only has about 7% interest in schools. You know, about 93% of all funding comes from state and local government. And so the federal government has a very small investment into schools. And so that's why the decisions that are best made should be closer to those students. And so it's very unfortunate when you get when the water gets a little muddied. And now what's happening here in DC, they're trying to federalize everything. Like you mentioned, critical race theory. I mean, they're trying to slide things into even, for example, grants, you know, to show some kind of prioritization of whether or not, you know, school districts are going to be able to be given grants and have priority if they are pushing the CRT agenda. But now, as we see earlier this week, they started backpedaling because about 35,000 comments against that nonsense came out in record number. And so now they're starting to backpedal. And again, it's political fashion. It's leftist fashion all day long. And so it's part of the handbook, you know, and it's interesting because it's also something to learn that when parents and when taxpayers and when good Americans all over this country stand up and stand firm and flat-footed, shoulder to shoulder, arm to arm, and you push back, you let them know who's in charge. And so then that's when they'll start to backpedal, when you start pushing and saying, hey, we're not going to tolerate this nonsense of you trying to indoctrinate our kids. And so it's a beautiful thing what we're seeing at Heritage. We're seeing a lot of parent groups all over the country pushing back. It's wonderful to see them showing up at, you know, school board meetings because these are elected people, you know, and parents at Heritage, on behalf of Heritage Foundation, on behalf of our president, Kay Coles James, and my vice president of the Folder Institute, Angela Saylor, we salute you, we applaud you, and we're standing shoulder to shoulder and arm to arm with you in that regard because the schools belong to you, not the government.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're very proud to have Heritage and you guys as our partner. As far as a national partner, I mean, we've got so much education, so much support. I mean, we were going to you guys all the time. What's a great model bill? What are we looking for? What are we looking at here? How's it coming in? So what we like to do is coordinate, you know, with a national level so that we understand that what we're looking at, where it's coming from. And I'm a big proponent of finding the source of the problem. A lot of us are going to, parents are going to school boards as they need to be doing and kind of holding the school board members accountable. But some of the stuff that we're seeing is state level stuff. So this is like the comment from hell. So things like culturally responsive teaching, things like that. And you alluded to these ESSER grants. They're going for culturally responsive teaching. And so we're going to the state level and saying, hey, cut this out. And they're like, what? This isn't critical race theory. So what do you suggest that we do when we're trying to hold state superintendents and state school boards responsible? And they're saying, hey, don't pay attention to us. Go down to the local level, when the local level is saying a lot of this stuff we can't do anything about.
You know what? I think we're on a good track, though. I think organizations like yourself, as well as many others all over the country. I've met people in Florida. I've met people in Colorado. I've met people all over so far in Michigan. I think you're on the right track with pushing back because, again, remember, your tax dollars pay for all this stuff. So applying that pressure more and more and calling them out on that stuff, I think you're on the right track. And quite frankly, to be honest with you, as much as the power and ownership should be at the local level, unfortunately, in some states, what we find is that the state legislators are the ones that's actually pulling the chain of the locals. And so, and sometimes it's a delicate balance because sometimes, unfortunately, the local folks are kind of at the mercy of those at the state level because that's where a lot of the funding that's coming from and being channeled through, like grants and things like that. And so they kind of play the game. And so, unfortunately, as an educator by profession myself, unfortunately, we have a lot of our teachers that absolutely adamantly oppose this nonsense. Now, go figure this, Sloan. You have 80% of our teaching force in this country, 80% are white and majority female. So essentially, if they're to push this agenda, essentially what you're telling the students that you claim you love and that you care about them and their families, essentially you're telling them that I'm your oppressor and you're the oppressed. And so that's an absolute crazy stuff, so I'm glad that parents are pushing back. I'm glad that those teachers who are coming out and risking their jobs. Now, that you talk about juvenile behavior, that's even more juvenile. You're taking away their freedom of speech, their right to speak out against something they totally disagree with. And another thing with that is this, if they're going to continue to push this, they're admitting that for decades they've lied to students all along, because now it's almost like CRT has become this holy grail, if you will, and it's the truth. But ladies and gentlemen, it's a theory, and it's based on someone's perspective. It's not factual. It's not truth. You might have a little bit of facts mixed in, but for the most part, it's still someone's perspective and based on their own experience. And so, but yet we see now the bureaucrats are actually pushing it and mandating it. And whenever that's happening, you gotta push back, because again, it's being done kind of like stealth-like, right? It's coming like that thief in the night. If it's well intended, then why is it being pushed in the back room or in the dark? Why weren't parents aware of that? No, they're finding out from their students when they come home and say, hey, mom, hey, dad, look at this. Look what they have us doing. And parents are blowing up. They're getting highly upset. So it's really supposed to be a partnership. And so I'm glad that all over the country, we see that parents are also pushing for transparency. And so that's the same thing that has to be done at the state level as well. And I strongly recommend that anything you can do to make for sure you hold them accountable, please make for sure you do so. And if they're not willing to be held accountable, then you vote them out. You get them out of there.
No one's better than we are at doing that. Absolutely. We like to give people the facts. And so our state school board is actually appointed. Majority of them are appointed, which is sort of a weird setup. And so, you mentioned that 80% of the teaching force are white women. And so this is the guy. I'm going to see a tweet from a guy named James Ford. He is pretty much the de facto head of the state school board. And no one has wanted to hold him accountable until we came along. Here's what he's writing. I mean, this is open. The entire debate about white women demographic, formerly made invisible in its perpetuation of white supremacy, suddenly being identified precisely. Karen may be pejorative, but it ain't a slur. The archetype is brilliant and accurate. They just can't deal with being outed. So this guy is, again, unchallenged. The state school board gives teachers their licenses. They control the teacher training. They control it all. This is the guy who really brought critical race theory in. I mean, there's zero accountability. The governor will not hold this guy accountable. The legislators will not hold this guy accountable. This guy is calling the shots and making the rules. This is an outrage.
Yeah, and my question to individuals like that, first and foremost, I'm not one that ascribed to any type of supremacy outside of God himself.
That's right.
As a matter of fact, most of the white people I've met and that I've known over the years, I'm 48 years old. So none of the white people that I've known in all of my lifetime even see themselves as being superior to anybody else. It's all a leftist talking point because they figured out, one of the things that they figured out, and rightfully so, because they were the ones actually pushing to keep blacks enslaved to begin with, they've studied us long enough to know that it's all based on emotions. If you can get African-Americans or Black Americans emotionally tied into something, then you basically have them. And so that's all they're playing on. So that's why they use terms like white supremacy or civil rights and voter suppression and racism and all this other stuff. Those are trigger words, and they've studied us long enough to know that. And so that's why they use those terms. If I'm ascribing to believe that white supremacy as a whole exists, then I also have to say that I ascribe to someone being inferior. Well, I see myself not inferior to nobody but God. And that's what's sad about it. If I'm believing that white supremacy as a whole exists, then that also means that I believe that blacks are inferior, and we all know the truth about that. We're inferior to nobody. And so again, it's a leftist talking point. It's juvenile behavior at its worst. It's children in the marketplace again. And quite frankly, I'm so glad again and applauding the work that you guys are doing, the work that we're doing at Heritage and all the other organizations all over the country, parent organizations finally stepping up and claiming and reclaiming their school districts back on the sake of their kids. And so it's a beautiful thing. And so I think we're going to win in the end. Yeah.
Well, absolutely. I mean, because we recognize that inculcating young children with these ideas, again, if you're being taught, hey, white people are in charge of this country, always have been, et cetera, and they hate you. What kind of horrible belief system is that to put into children? It's cruel. It's a human rights abuse.
Yeah, it's absolutely cruel. It's indoctrination. In the church world, they will call it demonic. They'll call it witchcraft. It's mind games, it's control, it's manipulation. It's all of that. And so it's a beautiful thing because I met some pastors. I've met with a group of pastors, and one in particular, I've had the pleasure of meeting. His name is Apostle Tommy Quick out of South Carolina. And they're on board with really making for sure that we focus on what really matters, and that is the family. My bishop as well, Bishop Hugh Smith Jr. From Embassy Covenant Church International in the city of Detroit, or in the Detroit area. He has written a book. They've done a class, actually a study on the importance of rebuilding the family, because really that's really what matters. Another thing too, Sloan, is that no one ever talks about, for example, like critical race theory. I've talked to some other folks, and they're saying, why are we even trying to indoctrinate young children on that level to even think about going back to the 1600s or whatever? I mean, why are we even going back there? I mean, you know what I mean? What is the end game? The end game, in my opinion, is to divide and conquer. That's really what it is. And it's to push an agenda. It's kind of like other movements throughout this country. It's always been, if you follow the money, you'll find out there's no black money going into it.
Exactly.
but they put blacks out there to push the agenda. And it's very unfortunate, but that's kind of the reality of where we are. Some people are being used as pawns, and quite frankly, it's more detrimental than it is doing good.
Well, absolutely. And to think that this movement benefits students of color, I mean, is ridiculous. And that I want to get this up and ask you your opinion, because you're uniquely qualified to judge this. So what you're looking at here, this has come off of the North Carolina Department of Instruction. I'll explain to you what you're looking at, because you need a telescope, quite frankly, to look at this. So these are math and reading scores.
Yeah.
Okay, and from 3rd to 8th graders in North Carolina over time. So this yellow star you're looking at, North Carolina was an early adopter of Common Core. So the yellow star is indicative of when the vote was taken and the state said, hey, we're going to do it. So now you see the scores, the precipitous drop here.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of different reasons that, maybe the testing's different or whatever, we get it. But there is an unbelievable pulling away of Black achievement and Asian and white. I mean,
Yeah.
And so we all recognize, and even the left wing talking point on this, and they're right, is that the Common Core exacerbated the problem of the racial achievement gap. And so this is 2019 right here. This red star is 2019. In 2019, our state, North Carolina, came up with a brilliant idea to bring on something called social emotional learning. We know that it's culturally responsive teaching and critical race theory. So given that, now critical race theory is being put in everything from basket weaving to math to science, etc.
Yeah.
Right? In your opinion, how is that going to bring this score up? We're looking at 2019, 14.3% of African-American students are proficient in reading, writing, and math, which is a red alert problem.
Yeah. And again, it's diverting. They got to have someone to blame for something, and so that's the trouble with this entire CRT agenda, because it's not focused on the main thing. And the main thing is to focus on making for sure that our children are successful. So the time of, for example, reading, writing, and arithmetic, it's like a thing of the past now, because we're so focused on critical race theory stuff. The white boogeyman has set up a system that works against you, and only look at things through the lens of race. And so to me, those results are going to be absolutely far worse over time if we don't do something right here and now. And I think the right thing to do is, again, when parents are stepping up and they're raising their voice and saying, enough is enough. We're no longer going to tolerate you trying to indoctrinate our kids. And again, let me go on a micro level. What does it absolutely have to do anything with Black achievement? Absolutely nothing. Now, I'm a former ancient history and social studies teacher. And quite frankly, the students that I taught, I was probably the least liked subject out of all of them, but I was probably their favorite teacher, of course. But but my subject was not one of the favorites. And so when you're trying to make race out of math, seeing race in all of this other stuff is absolute foolishness. It means absolutely nothing. It's not going to advance anything. We just saw, I just saw a report or a news story that came out of Baltimore. I know Baltimore gets hit a lot, but it is what it is. They had 41% of their students scoring less than a D average. Now, mind you, also within this article, it talked about the amount of funding they were getting. One gentleman actually said they take. In other words, they outspend 97% of all other larger districts in the nation. And you get 41% of your students scoring less than a D average. The shamefulness also, they had another interview with one of the leaders there, one of the councilmen, and it was on Tucker Carlson. I remember watching it, and they asked, what happened to all the money that was coming into Baltimore? And his response, unfortunately, was that he was not there to talk about what happened to the money that came from the Obama administration, the Trump administration. Millions and millions, if not billions of dollars over a 10-year span was sent to the city, and he didn't want to talk about that. But he mentioned, but I will say 400 years of oppression and slavery is the issue. And like, what does that have to do with the billions of dollars you guys just received over 10 years? So again, it's to pivot away from what's really happening in our school districts and our communities. And unfortunately, here's another smokescreen in critical race theory to get our kids to focus on this so-called white boogeyman or this system set up that's going to always be against them. Now, a very wise young child will ask the question to mommy or daddy, then why are we still here? If I have no way of being successful in this country, mom and dad, then why do you still have me here? You want me to fail? So again, it's all foolishness, man. And again, it's a leftist talking points. It's bureaucrat money. It's so horrible, but I'm glad to see that we're creating a groundswell, that these parent groups are creating this groundswell, and they're standing up and they're creating this firewall to fight back against it.
Right. And Firewall is exactly what we need to do here. And in North Carolina, and we have chapters everywhere, North Carolina, Illinois, Texas, Arizona. I mean, the majority of the state spending goes to education. And North Carolina is 56% of the budget alone. And so a lot of conservatives, 56%. And so conservatives in our state, in North Carolina, where I am, conservatives have not looked under the hood of where that money is going to. Conservatives have had a long history of wanting school choice, which is critically important. But it is also important how the state budget is spent. And, you know, you see, administrative position after administrative position, 120K a year being created, and the output is zero. And you've got seasoned teachers, good teachers, master prepared teachers who are not getting the money that they deserve. And so we believe the money should follow the student, period, whether it's in the public school or the private school. That's right. It should follow, and that includes, you know, paying these teachers who are paying. We heard from one teacher last night, $1,000 a year just to get school supplies on her own. When these administrators are sitting up there creating all these positions that, quite frankly, are not needed. And so we really, guys, and I have to encourage you, we have to find where the problem is. It doesn't do a lot of good to be raising hell at the school board level and the district level if, lo and behold, it is a state mandated program that schools and district get evaluated on. So we always need to go and do these in tandem, figure out where the problems are so that we can go at many, many different levels, right, to solve those problems we talked about. And so besides what we talked about, we've already hit upon, what can you leave us with that's, you know, just how do we create a firewall between DC and our school districts? We do not want DC running our schools. What can we do?
Well, there's power in numbers. And I think, again, I think you guys are on the right track. I think you're keeping yourself informed. You hold your legislators accountable. You're ringing the phone. You're coming to DC if you have to and visiting those legislators. You're going to those school board meetings and you're asking the school for itemized budgets or line items of where that money's going. You're doing all the above. I mean, you know, and I think that's what's happening now. That groundswell is really a firewall, I'll tell you the truth. But you're absolutely right. You're holding these people accountable. There's no way in God's green earth that Washington, D.C. Politicians and bureaucrats should be controlling the education system at the state and local level. It's just absolutely crazy. You mean to tell me that someone all the way in Washington should be telling the folks out in, let's say, the Washington state or Montana somewhere how to run their school district, and these people don't even go there? I mean, that's absolutely crazy. So I think what you're doing, I think you're on the right path. I would also encourage everyone to make for sure they go to heritage.org/CRT to keep yourself updated on the latest and greatest news that's coming out in reference to what we're doing on the critical race theory, on the critical race theory front. I would also encourage folks to actually also sign up to become a member of Heritage Foundation. A lot of our experts and a lot of the things that we put out, like the Daily Signal and those kind of things, it can really help to keep you all informed. And there's also links that come with, you know, up-to-date op-eds and stuff like that, just to keep yourself informed on that stuff. So I think we're on the right track. I think we have to, again, encourage more to join in with us, but I think we're on the right track. And I think, like I said before, in the end, we're going to win big time.
Absolutely. Well, good. Well, I want to thank you again for coming on tonight and, you know, telling us what's going on at the federal level and, you know, the kind of pushback we needed. Most importantly, I mean, you've been very positive tonight, you know, that we're winning. And I really think so as well, because look, you know, it only takes, guys, 10%. 10% of people need to really focus on what's going on and say, no, we're not going to do this. People think, you know, their parents think, oh my gosh, we can't convince every single person in our town to do this. That's not necessary. You could be an army of one. You could be that guy that is out there dancing at the wedding before anybody else is dancing. And about an hour, you got the whole crowd with you. And that's what it takes. It takes to be that first guy that goes out there on the dance floor, dancing until everybody catches up. And then that's what it takes.
Yeah. And one more thing, if I could, also go to levelupcivics.org as well. That's another project that we have, and sign up to actually get our latest and greatest news on Level Up Civics. That's another program that we have at Heritage that I think a lot of people will find very helpful. Again, that's levelupcivics.org. Go to that website and sign up to receive our updates on that as well.
Okay, absolutely. And you'll let us know in those updates, presumably at the federal level, what kind of programs we need to be looking for.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
okay, guys, and that's really important. I know that we're really attuned with the district level, but that's kind of what people want, right? People want people from up top at the state level. They want you focused on the local level so they can get away with nonsense.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, yeah. So keep at them. You know, again, demand that that you get all the information that you need from those folks. Listen, your taxpayer dollars is going to pay their salary, quite frankly. And so if they're representing you, you need to get some information from them, and you need to hold them accountable and keep reminding them who they actually work for. You don't work for them; they work for you.
Yeah, their job.
Watch your paycheck.
That's right. I mean, their job, their only job, is to represent their constituents.
That's right.
And we need to know that. And so, and you know, we talk about that a lot. And we also talk about teachers and principals. They're an arm of the government. And so when you're talking about scapegoating, when you're talking about collectively punishing and doing things like that, it's not a teacher or a principal. It is the government doing that to their own people and to children, teachers. And so thinking about it that way is very critical. We are not going to allow the government to perpetuate state-sponsored racism. We're not going to do it. That's right.
Yeah, and that's all it is. I'm glad you said that. It's really bigotry and racism, trying to fight bigotry and racism. You can't fight it with racism. You know what I mean? It's absolutely craziness. But again, keep up the great work. You guys are doing wonderful work. I'm here for you. Heritage stands by you guys. And again, like I said, on behalf of our president, Ms. James, and my vice president, Angela Saylor, we stand strong with you guys and all the parents out there that are pushing back. And we're looking forward to more victories all across the country. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Terris, thank you very much, and have a great evening. We'll talk to you soon.